good morning, McHenry High School families. My name is Curtis Mankey. I'm the College and Career Counselor here at McHenry High School. Thank you for whether you're joining us live, and it looks like we do have some live viewers right now. At the time of this recording, we're at 8:30 in the morning on September 15th, 2023, in case anyone runs into this video years into the future. For those who are watching the recorded version, we also are grateful for your participation as well. We want to make sure that we're offering opportunities for all of our families to engage in the way that best suits the way you're comfortable, best suits your time and whatnot. Got a couple of people joining us as well. I'll start with my colleague Amy. Amy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Buchanan. I'm a sophomore counselor here for A through LE.
All right, and then we also have Kristen from MCC. MCC is amongst our strongest partners. Kristen, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kristen Mueller, and I'm representing the admissions office at McHenry County College.
Yeah, we are grateful for MCC's partnership. On any given year, 45 to 50% of McHenry grads take their next step at a local community college, which with almost all of them taking their next step at MCC, because MCC is our in-district community college. Therefore, it is the most inexpensive next college step for the vast majority of our families. For those that are watching live, you're watching this on YouTube, so you see the comment section below the video. You can enter in questions there, and we can see them live in real time and respond to them. So again, for our live viewers, go ahead, feel free whenever you want, enter questions in there, and we can answer those as we go. All right, college planning presentation. So the intent of this particular presentation is to let families know what steps go into the college search and preparation process. We will talk a little bit about the application process, but again, today's presentation is a little bit more geared towards how do I get ready for college while in high school? How do I find schools that might suit me? We'll have a couple slides about how to pay for it. And then we'll get insights from our community college partner as well on those local opportunities. All right, away we go. So again, this slide is kind of baked into basically every presentation I do, because honestly, it really captures the purpose of my role, which is to help students take a step into some kind of education or training after McHenry High School. Being honest with you, that's the one universal goal that I have for every one of our students, is get trained or educated in something else after high school. Today, we're going to focus more on the bottom two. The MCC transfer process, as well as starting away from home right after high school at a four-year school. Both of those bottom two options result in the exact same thing: 4 years of college and a bachelor's degree from the school that you end at. So again, it doesn't matter which way you start, it matters where you end. That's the important part. The agenda for today, we've got some fun facts and reassurances. We'll hit some resources for you. We'll get into some detail on that search and fit. We'll talk a little bit about what colleges look for, admission factors. Again, a couple nuggets about how to pay for what's next. We do have a much deeper dive into that topic coming up. We have an in-person presentation here at the school on October 12th, and then the next morning, the in-person is the 11th, and then we'll have a virtual version of it the next morning, the 12th, and then we will hear again from Kristen over at MCC. For those that like things simple, like myself, I like to keep things simple whenever we can. I like to summarize how we engage with your students into one word at every grade level. 9th grade, we're not asking them to do anything more than imagine what's out there. 10th grade, we want them to lean into discovery. And I like to think of that as kind of self-discovery. Who are you? What are your interests? What are you good at? 11th grade is when we look outside of our walls. So we explore options and opportunities. And then 12th grade, that is the time to take action. I would argue, for those that are watching this video, again, whether you're live, whether you're watching the recorded version, the entire four-year college admissions process. So again, if your student is looking to start away from home, the entire admissions and application process kind of comes down to these things. Colleges are trying to figure out, as they're reviewing applications, who is going to be academically successful, who is going to fit into their campus community, and then ultimately who is going to stay. I would argue it really comes down to those three things. So as you're reviewing the rest of this presentation, and as you're engaging with your student and how, which of those options could work for them, keep these three things in mind, because ultimately this is really what colleges are trying to determine when they're looking at people's applications and when they are deciding who they admit. A couple of fun facts, and this is just to kind of take the edge off of our parents. We like to share these with students as well. If you are looking to start away from home, approximately 3/4 of all four-year colleges nationwide accept 3/4 of applicants. And I bring that up not to lower anybody's standards, but just to provide people assurance that things will work out. Things will work out. Most schools are relatively attainable to be strongly considered as an admission candidate to. That said, when you look at all of the four-year schools nationwide, 66% of four-year college applications are accepted. Again, there's over 2,100 four-year schools nationwide. Your student will attend one of those. Of those 2,100, there's about 50 that we consider to be most selective. Though that's Harvard, that's Yale, that's Stanford, that's Northwestern. Of course, those schools are very difficult to get into for any student. Most of those have admissions percentages of 10% or less. But again, most schools are not that selective. This one I like to bring up just again for levity. Students are automatically admitted to these four-year schools if their GPAs are at or above the numbers on screen. And again, this isn't to lower anyone's bar, but it's just to ensure that there are attainable options out there. And just because a school has a lower admission standard, that does not mean that you will get a lesser education there. Again, this really all comes down to fit, which we will get into that in a little bit. And just as a reminder, MCC accepts any applicant with a high school diploma. So quite literally, anyone can go to college, because by definition, MCC is a college. It's quite literally in the title. One really quick nugget here for any viewers who have students that are considering student athletics. If they are blessed with that athletic skill and desire and to compete at the Division I or II level, make sure you're working with your school counselor and myself, because the NCAA is quite picky about the courses that one takes in high school. We want to make sure that we're checking the right boxes so that your student athlete is eligible to participate in college athletics right away at the D1 or D2 level. All right, next couple of slides, we're going to get into some resources. These are ones that we engage with your students on in a regular basis. However, these are also available to you as families and parents as well. Every McHenry High School student has a course in Schoology that's called 2020, whatever the year their graduating class is. And then it says post-secondary resources. This is where we keep our primary resources. There are more out there, but I would argue that there's a couple in particular that are of particular use to you and your students. First and foremost, there's the people-based resources. Of course, every grade level, we have the two generalist counselors in there as well as myself. For your students, they can schedule meetings with us whenever they want. All they got to do is go into this course in Schoology and click the link below their counselor or below my name, and students can actually just schedule their own meetings with us, and it pops up on our calendar, and we'll expect them at that date and time. The other resources that are there, this one is called SchoolLinks. This is a new resource. This replaces a program we've used for the last several years called Naviance. It does all of the things on your screen. It basically involves future planning and actions, if you want to summarize it, whether it be exploring future options, whether it be come senior year taking action on some of those future options. This is where our seniors are managing their applications. It's where they request documents from us with. That also has a great scholarship search in there as well. Students already have access to this. Don't let them tell you that they don't know how to log in, because it's single sign-on with Google. All they got to do is hit the login with Google button and then click on their District 156 credentials, and they're in. We are, at the time of this recording, we are still working on finalizing parent logins. We hope to have those out by early October at the very latest, so just keep an eye on emails for that. Our next resource that we have for parents is our College and Career Guide. This is an internally developed tool. It is made in Google Slides, but it works like a website. So basically, you click on whichever of these buttons is of interest to you at that time, and it'll take you into a deeper dive into that section. So for instance, if you're a sophomore in high school and you want to look at how do I prepare for college while in high school, then you want to click that one in the bottom left. If you're a junior and you're starting to look around at schools that are out there, that top middle one will come in handy. So again, whichever of these are of interest to you at a given time. This is really kind of a how-to guide for students and families. Another resource we have in that Schoology group is simply a calendar of college reps, military recruiters, events that are coming up. This is just a quick screen grab of part of that file. We have colleges come through our College and Career Center on a regular basis. Again, at the time of this recording, just as an example, next week on September 18th during fourth period, we'll have a rep from the University of Dayton here. So anyone who is interested in that school, or I'll also say maybe interested in a school that's a little further away from home or kind of a mid-sized school, we would encourage to come to that. Students can talk to their teachers. So let's say somebody's physics class is at that time. Students can attend during a class as long as they have their teacher's permission. We do encourage them to try to ask that teacher a day in advance to make things a little easier on that teacher. This one is just some, again, at the time of this recording, some upcoming opportunities we have. I'll point out a couple in particular. On October 5th, MCC every fall, they host a enormous four-year college fair. It's a really great place to go and just, maybe add a couple of schools to the list, maybe connect with some places of interest, what have you. But again, it's a great local free opportunity to really do some exploring. We're going to have a bus trip up to Carthage and Whitewater over the course of the next month. Again, as I said before, we got that financial aid presentation. And I'll also throw a nugget in here for any students that are considering military options, which could also include ROTC at the college level. We have a session of the ASVAB coming up later in October. All right, this slide right here captures a lot of the entire college search process. And this comes down to a word we call fit. What is your college fit? Again, there's 2,100 four-year schools out there. If we throw in community colleges, tech and trade schools, there's about 5,500 of those nationwide. Your students will attend one. How do we figure out which one of those is the best fit for them? Oversimplifying it, it really kind of comes down to wants and needs. What does your student want and need out of the experience, out of the education? The main criteria box, typically the things that most people consider, at least to some degree, the type of school it is, how close or far it is from home, depending on perspective. Of course, you want the school to have the major that you want. School size is something that most students take into consideration, as well as cost. And the other factors, I won't go through all of those, but again, some people think those, will have factors in there that are incredibly important. There's some that on that list that they won't ever consider, and that's fine. But again, this really comes down to your academic fit, your community fit, and then your financial fit. So again, if you can kind of balance those three things, find the sweet spot where they intersect, that's where people can find success and happiness in their next step. Ms. Buchanan, I'm gonna throw things over to you because you've got some great insight on this next slide. Another way for families to kind of get to know and identify schools of interest. So if you don't mind taking this one.
Sure. So for juniors and seniors, they get 2 days each year for college visits, and we highly encourage you to take that opportunity to physically get onto the campus. I have 2 daughters right now that are in college, a freshman and a senior. And then we have a son that graduated college and now he's in the military. So I do have a lot of experience with the college. I think physically going onto the college campus is very important. Obviously, colleges take the best pictures and the best seasons. So a lot of colleges, or all colleges, look amazing. And it does come down to fit, like Mr. Menke said, physically going there. I know in my own experience with my daughters, we went onto some campuses where they were like, Mom, this is it? Like, this is too small, or this is too big. And this campus is a little bit scary, but like in a good way, like this is perfect. So I think that that's very, very important to take the actual visits. Also, I know sometimes it's difficult to go during the school year, but that would be my recommendation, just to be able to see the hustle and bustle, and because it's hard. I did some summer school visits, and I'm the one that's like, no, this is really a cool campus. Imagine these kids being here, and my daughter's like, yeah, Mom, it's like dead here. It's like, no, it really is cool. So if you can go, I know it's hard sometimes. It's good if you can go anytime, but it's best during the school year if possible. So yeah, I think it's just that's the most important thing. Take advantage of the 2 days each year during junior and senior year to go. And then for sophomores to come in and do those rep visits here in the College and Career Center, I think is important too, just to start exploring and getting information.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Ms. Buchanan, because not only can you speak to this professionally, but you also have the personal angle on it as well.
Yeah,
So, which
sure.
again, I hope our parents appreciate that. So again, visiting college campuses whenever it is possible. Again, that sometimes it's easier said than done. We encourage you to
Sure.
take those opportunities. The next two slides I've been building into every presentation just because I want to make sure that all of our families and students have access to the next step. This one, most colleges will recognize and offer accommodations for those who in high school had 504 plans, health plans, IEPs. I will say those don't automatically transfer to the school. So students do have to self-advocate, and parents, by the time your student turns 18, those colleges will not include you in the conversation unless your student chooses to include you. So just a courtesy heads up on that. All public schools nationwide, including community colleges such as MCC, are legally obligated to offer disability services, accommodative services, because they receive your tax dollars at the local and federal level. I will say most private schools also offer them as well, because those private schools know that if they don't, they just lost out on a quarter of their potential applicants. So again, most private schools will also offer them as well. From an income perspective, 1 out of 3 McHenry High School students qualifies for free or reduced lunch. Not that this slide just caters to those families, but I like to include this as well. Most of the public four-year universities in Illinois have some kind of reduced or even free tuition programs, depending on income status. Most of the schools on the screen, if the family income is at or below $75,000 and the student is admitted, they could qualify for drastically reduced, if not free tuition to those schools. For that reason alone, I'd like to see our seniors who are applying to college include at least one of these schools, just to see what the final price is, because if they do qualify for certain things, odds are that number is going to come in a lot lower than most of the other schools that they're looking at. Another way to identify schools of interest, again, just going back to the School Links program we have, there is a particular feature in there called School Search, in which students can run filtered searches to narrow down from those over 5,000 schools nationwide to hopefully a much smaller number that fits what they're looking for. So for instance, if your student is looking at a sociology degree at a public school in Rhode Island that is less than 3,000 students and has an intramural badminton team, if it exists, this program can spot those for you. And then, as always, we encourage students, as they spot things in this program, click the heart, favorite it, and that'll save it for them as well. This particular slide, as we're shifting towards what do colleges actually look for, and what can high school students do while in high school to make themselves the best candidate possible come senior year. So on the left side is, we call them college admission factors. This is actual research done a couple of years ago. This data was collected just pre-pandemic, and this basically says, looking at the column in the middle, that this percentage of schools considers that factor on the left side to be really important when they're reviewing people's applications. Again, I point out this data was collected pre-pandemic. That admission test score number is drastically lower than what the number is on screen in reality right now, and we'll come back to that one here in just a moment. First and foremost, though, most colleges' grades and GPA are, if it's not the first thing they look at, it's among the first things they look at. Again, 3/4 of four-year colleges consider grades to be one of the most important things that they look at. Many four-year schools will consider students with GPAs as low as 2.0. We do encourage, especially at freshman and sophomore levels, try to aim to have that first number in your GPA at least be the number 3, because that's really when those opportunities can expand. I'll also point out that something we've noticed with four-year schools recently is that they will take into account recency in grades. So for instance, if you get somebody who really struggled freshman year to adjust the high school level academics, but they improved as high school went on, then that can also play a factor in their favor towards getting admitted. However, I will say it also works the other way, where if somebody was a rock star freshman year and then progressively declined in their performance, that can also hinder them as well. Course rigor is something that schools will take a look at. Maybe you earned a 4.0, but you didn't challenge yourself in anything, especially your areas of strength. We want to make sure that our students are challenging themselves appropriately. And again, I stress appropriately. I think Ms. Buchanan can agree with me on this, that, we want to see students stretch themselves, but we also don't want to see students tear themselves apart with the academic rigor. There is a balance to this. We want to make sure our students are challenging them in areas of strength and areas of interest. Let's grow those interests. Let's grow those passions. Let's grow those existing skills that students have. I like to sneak this slide in. I'll be very quick with this one, but again, for any non-senior parents that are watching, senior year is really kind of a launch point to what could lie beyond high school, because you get a lot more elective choice in the matter. So again, we'll be picking classes here in a few months. Just make sure that they're picking classes that kind of align with some of those general post-secondary goals, knowing full well that we're still formulating those as we go. All right, standardized testing, everybody's favorite topic. A quick note for any junior parents that are watching, and juniors, all juniors at McHenry High School on October 18th will take an assessment called and this is a mouthful, the PSAT/NMSQT. The NMSQT is the important part there, because although this is not an official SAT, the results of this particular assessment can be used for scholarship purposes. So again, this is not a true practice SAT. In fact, the P doesn't stand for practice, it stands for preliminary. So a strong performance on this can result in tangible outcomes, such as national merit standing, or perhaps even some national level scholarships. So when your junior sits down to take this in a month, make sure they're putting their full effort into it. All right, standardized tests. Colleges are looking at them most colleges are looking at them very differently than in the past. Ms. Buchanan, feel free to jump in at any point on this topic if you want. I'll start off just by saying that pre-pandemic, there was a slow trickle of colleges that were shifting towards an admission policy called test optional, in which students can choose to send their test scores in to be reviewed as part of their application. Once the pandemic hit, basically every school in the nation had to go test optional, simply because there were students in the nation who didn't have access to take standardized tests. So colleges don't like lawsuits, so to avoid being sued, they had to pivot to this to allow everyone access, fair and equal access to be considered for admissions. Now that we're on the backside of the pandemic, most of those schools have remained test optional. There are some that are requiring tests. The public schools in Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida are requiring them. There's a couple prominent private schools, Georgetown, MIT are requiring them. Most of the schools in the Midwest are remaining test optional. There's one notable exception. Purdue has just shifted back to requiring tests. Ms. Buchanan, any takes you have on, the SAT, what it is, what it's not?
Well, as far as like the SAT scores for admission, what I would say from my own experience with my daughters that are in college, that's true. They both got in. They didn't, they were like, "Mom, that's embarrassing," even though they didn't do bad, but in their minds. But then the college was like, "Okay, well, since you didn't give your scores, we need you to take the placement test," which makes sense because they don't know what their standardized scores are. So once they showed those scores, they didn't have to take the placement tests. And a matter of fact, one of my daughters, due to her score, she was going to school to be a math teacher. So one of her math score was good, extra above average. So she was actually able to skip a couple of the first college classes based off of showing her scores. So I would recommend that your students do, if they have good scores or decent scores, that they do show them to the colleges at some point. They both had gotten in and then showed their scores later because the one daughter was able to skip some of the scores. Also, some colleges look at those scores and giving scholarships. So, if appropriate, depending on what your child's score is, I would recommend that they think about showing those to the colleges because of placement purposes and also potential scholarship purposes.
Yeah. Again, thank you again, Ms. Buchanan. I will point out the irony of trying your best on this test. Again, students have to take the SAT at least once in high school. There is a state mandated session in April that all juniors in Illinois have to take to meet a state graduation requirement. So again, I will point out the irony. We want students to do well on this test to hopefully avoid some future tests. And again, a decent score on the SAT can certainly help avoid future, placement tests. Again, colleges will still look at test scores if you choose to send them in, those that are test optional, and we can help your students figure out if it's in their best interest to send it or not. So if, I'm working with several seniors right now who will come to me and say, hey, Mr. Mankey, I'm applying to Iowa State, and here's what my test score was. Is this going to help me or hurt me if I send in my test score? So basically what we'll do is pull up kind of the typical range of scores that Iowa State in this example would accept. And if that score falls in that range, then yeah, let's go ahead and send that test score to support it. But if it's below the range, then let's just go test optional and let the rest of the students' performance and record do the talking. And again, we can help you with that. MCHS does offer the SAT in March and June sessions. College Board offers the SAT itself about 7 times a year on Saturdays. They're called national testing dates. We do, and I say this very, very loosely and very sensitively, we do encourage students to take it at least one more time. Again, they have to do the April one because of the state. We encourage students to do at least one more time because colleges will take the better score. Some colleges will do something called super scoring. So maybe you take it twice. The first time you take it, you do better on the reading writing part. The second time you do better in the math part. So they'll take those better sub scores and make something called a super score. So again, we encourage people to take it more than once. Students can do it on a Saturday in March and or June here as well, in addition to the free one in April. They do have to pay for that. It's about $60 to take the SAT on a Saturday morning. And again, students who qualify for free or reduced lunch can have that waived. Just talk to me or their assigned counselor. One last note on testing before we move on. There's a couple ways to prepare for it. On the left side is a free online prep. It's through Khan Academy. College Board and Khan Academy a couple years ago entered a partnership so that Khan Academy is the official SAT practice for College Board. Again, the organization that does the SAT. We strongly encourage students to use that, especially since it's free. On the right side, in January and February, we will offer in-person training workshops for students through a program called Zapping the SAT. It does cost $50, but again, fees are waived for families who qualify for free or reduced lunch. A couple more things that colleges can look at, and some of these next ones, not every school looks at. So some schools ask for essays, some don't. Again, we're working with seniors who are applying to schools that do ask for essays. I'll throw just a couple quick tips out there. I always want to see students write authentically, write in your voice, write in your best voice, but write in your voice. I gave the example last night during the live session. I'm working with a senior right now. I took a look at his essay about a week ago, and I swear every adverb that I could think of was in here. Like every other word ended with the letters LY. Like that's great to sprinkle in, but that's not how you talk. So write in your voice, be authentic to yourself. Don't write in a way that you want them to see. Write from your true, genuine perspective. Say more with less is another thing. Like if you can write a 500-word essay in 410 words, great. Again, you don't feel like you have to hit the word limit just to hit the word limit as well. And then always have somebody review. We've all been there. You read your own work so many times, you start missing things. Have a fresh set of eyes, take a look. Demonstrated interest is another thing that some schools consider. And this is basically what actions are you taking to show a school your interest? So for instance, if a college sends a representative here to McHenry, did that student go talk to them? So again, these are simple things. This also includes visits to campuses like Ms. Buchanan mentioned earlier. We do encourage, self-guided tours are great, but you want them to know that you were there. So do the official tour through the admissions office. Most college websites, you can sign up for campus tours and campus visits right on their website. You can always call them as well. But again, this is a super simple way to kind of give you a leg up in that admissions process. Your reputation matters, folks. And I put this in the context of how other people will kind of report to these schools. So a lot of schools will ask for teacher evaluations or counselor evaluations, or some, not all, some will ask for letters of recommendation. What do you want those people to say about you? And how does your reputation influence what is said about you? Again, it's and I would argue that this goes well beyond things like grades and just raw academic performance. This is things like, do you raise your hand in class once or twice a period? Do you are you polite to people? Did you hold the door for people? Do you clean up after yourself in the lunchroom? Like these little things matter, and they can form that thing called a reputation. And folks, I know those watching and listen, we all know how hard it is to shake a bad reputation once it's established. So, do those little things day in and day out. Control the narrative. And then the last one, extracurricular involvement. Again, different schools put different emphasis on this, but very generally stated, schools want to see what else there is to somebody. Are you going to fit their campus community? And this is one way to show that. So in other words, what have you done outside of the classroom? Do you have a part-time job? Are you involved in something? I always discourage students from joining 15 different activities, just because like colleges aren't looking at the length of your bullet point list. They're looking at how you made a difference, how you engage. So my feedback is do a couple of things while you're in high school and make a difference in those couple of things, whether it be something directly through McHenry High School or maybe volunteering on your own in the community, or again, maybe it's a part-time job, things like that. But again, how else are you making a difference outside of your academics? All right, this slide and the next one, start kind of tiptoeing into the beginning of senior year. How many schools, if I am applying to four-year schools, how many? 4 to 8 is kind of the range that we encourage, with at least one of those schools being a school that is likely to get into, just to make sure you've got one on the list that, again, that you are most likely to get accepted to. And then when do we start acting? So for those senior families watching, now is the time to start filling out four-year college applications. Many schools have what they call early action deadlines, which have November 1st deadlines. When schools offer those, we encourage early action. Many schools will also have regular deadlines that are typically, the beginning of June, beginning of February, beginning of March. So again, we tend to see kind of September and October has the highest volume of applications, but that process can continue on into the spring as well. And just stating the obvious, watch your deadlines. All right, 2 slides on financial aid, and then we're going to turn things over to Kristen from MCC. Again, we have the deeper dive on financial aid coming up in October, but we figured we'd throw a couple of nuggets out there this morning. Financial aid is applied for by completing an online form called the FAFSA. You go to, quite simply, fafsa.gov to complete it. For this year's seniors, it is not going to open until December. Traditionally, the FAFSA opens on October 1st. However, the Department of Education has blown up the FAFSA, and they are quite literally rebuilding it from scratch. So right now, it will open sometime in December. We will make sure to keep our senior families posted on that. When you apply for financial aid, essentially you're applying for the 3 things on the right side of the screen: grants, loans, and work study. I'll start from the bottom. Work study is quite simply, it resembles a part-time job on a college campus, but they don't take taxes out, which is a nice little perk. The middle one, loans, clearly the ugliest of the 3. We want to minimize those to the extent we can, if not avoid them. Depending on someone's situation and where their next step is, sometimes loans have to be a part of it. But again, we want to reduce those to the extent we can. If somebody has to take out loans, we recommend doing it through the FAFSA, through federal aid, because they will charge you a lower interest rate than your family bank will. And then the last of the financial aid types is the one that everybody wants, and that's grants. Grants are free money. Not to get too far into detail on this one today, some grants come from the federal government, some come from the state government. Not everyone is eligible for them. Family income is the biggest factor that can impact whether or not someone is eligible for grants. Again, there is one grant that can only be used if you stay in Illinois, which is another reason why I like to see everyone have at least one school in Illinois, which could be MCC, on their application list, just to see if they're eligible for that free money. All right, one more slide. We're going to skip this one. And then Kristen, I'm going to throw it to you after this one. Scholarships, that's the other way to take some chunks of that cost out. Again, cutting right to the chase, you can find scholarships in three main places. The place number one is, and this is the biggest one, folks, is from the schools themselves. If your student is looking at Illinois State, what does Illinois State offer? If your student is looking at University of Missouri, what does Missouri offer? If you're looking at MCC, what does MCC offer? And they got a lot, folks, and I got a feeling Kristen's going to mention that here in a moment. Local sources, we keep a list in Schoology of scholarships offered by local organizations. And by local, it could be the Lakemore Scholarship Fund. So it could be on that local of a level. Most of those come out during the winter time, so we encourage our seniors to keep their eyes open then. And then there are national sources for scholarships. That's where you run a free scholarship search, such as the one in SchoolLinks. You plug in some info about yourself, and it'll give you a laundry list of scholarships that you're eligible to apply for. All right. Before we turn things over to Kristen, Amy, any words of feedback you have with scholarships?
No, I think it's important. Another source is parents' workplace or your local church. I know my husband's a firefighter. Their association always has scholarships, so I think that's another good place to check. Obviously, the ones that Mr. Menke talked about are great, but also it could be personal things. Workplace, the child's workplace, the parent's workplace are good sources too. The best thing though is to talk to the colleges. I would just highly encourage that. They're not going to give you their best offer of their aid at first, especially if your situation has changed since you filled out the FAFSA, because it's going back from a couple of years before for income. So there's lots of ways to be able to pay for college, and so we're more than happy to help with those resources, as long as the ones on the screen.
All right. Well, we did just have a question roll in, Amy and Kristen. The question from Michelle. Michelle throws out there. I always feel like a talk show host when I do these. But Michelle writes, "Can they not apply for those scholarships until senior year? The ones from the schools themselves, you typically can't take direct action on until senior year because you first have to apply to the school. Then you'll go after their scholarships. We do encourage you to scout those, though. Yeah, there's no reason why you can't poke around, do some research, but you can't act on the school-based ones until you've applied to the school." The follow-up question, or admissions. Typically you can't apply to the college until senior year has begun. By this point, for families of seniors right now, again, I'd be shocked if there's a college out there that has not opened up their application, at least four-year schools, for fall of 24. Nope, you're welcome. We got to thank you there. The local scholarships, most of those you don't apply for till senior year, and again, most of those typically don't come out until like January, February, March. And I will say, not as many people apply for those as you think. The national level ones are the ones that non-seniors can search for and potentially act on. There are some national level scholarships that people as young as freshman year can apply for. So that is one area that non-seniors can look for and potentially act on scholarships. All right, Kristen, we're going to move on to Kristen Mueller over from MCC. MCC is our strongest local post-secondary partner. They offer a wealth of great opportunities. I'm a huge advocate of the community college system. Kristen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So today we're going to focus on generally how courses can transfer from McHenry County College onto other colleges. And there's other opportunities, and as well as what to expect now and how to plan. So our general contact information is on this slide, but I can see my direct email is also scrolling. So please feel free to reach out to me or any of us at any time, because everybody's story and situation is unique. And I'm always happy, and we are always happy to talk to you and figure out what's the right direction for each of you. So we will not cover everything today that we don't have enough time for that. So please reach out anytime. Okay. So we're going to talk for a second about admissions and placement, how it works at a community college, specifically McHenry County College. And so if you want to go forward, the application is on our website. It is open now for fall and summer of next year. So if you are a senior and want to apply and you're thinking about starting at MCC in the fall or summer, you can apply now. And for McHenry, there is a code for everybody in McHenry High School can use the code McHenry to apply for free. So go ahead and write that down, save it for later, or ask any of us if you forget. But when you apply to a community college, when you apply to MCC, check your email, the one that you applied with, for next steps. And I recommend applying with a personal email that you check regularly, not your high school email, because your high school email will deactivate after you graduate from high school. So, we want to be able to be in contact with you. So use an email that you check, and use this. Students should use their email. Don't use like a parent email or something like that. If you are a dual credit student, have taken college classes with MCC through your time in high school, you do still need to apply to McHenry County College. It's showing us intent that you plan to continue forward as like a traditional college student after you graduate from your high school. So let's keep going forward. We will ask you to send your high school transcript. That's not a factor for admissions. Neither are SAT or ACT scores. Those are not admissions factors, but as we talked about, they do matter toward placement. So depending on what you're studying, we do use that information, as well as high school GPA, AP scores, your dual credit classes. We can use all this information for placement to make sure that you're in the right classes when you're starting college, and potentially for scholarships. So yes, I do recommend that you do as well as you can on your SAT or ACT tests, and that you should take those. I know it's a requirement, and absolutely take an AP test if you have an AP class. I think that opportunity to earn credit is there, so you should do that. But go ahead and send that information to us. Again, it's not a factor for admission, but we do use that for placement. And so if you do need a placement test, we'll talk about that later. We're going to cover all this information in detail a little further into the school year. All new students going into college often go through a new student orientation. Same thing at MCC. And so students who are starting with us, their first semester, usually in the summer, if they're starting in the fall, they'll go through a new student orientation where they come in person and work with an academic advisor to help teach. They learn how to use the course planning modules and register for classes, but you'll be doing that with an academic advisor so that you're taking the right classes in the right order. If you're planning on transferring or planning toward the school you're intending to go to, if you're kind of undecided, that's okay. We'll help you guide yourself toward the right choices for now. So just know that we are going to be there to support you through that process, and that happens in the summertime. So again, we're going to help you with class planning. We'll go through that later on in the school year. And again, class registration happens during orientation, but students do have the ability to register for classes on their own after their registration date opens up. So watch for that through your MCC student email or whatever college email you end up getting. Again, reiterating, access and disability services is something that we offer. Pretty much all schools, community colleges offer this, but it is on the student to reach out to the disability services office in order to access or start the process of accommodations. There is no way for a college to know that a student had accommodations at their high school. We don't know unless you reach out. So we highly recommend that you do that as soon as possible. And we start that process. We would make an intake appointment with you to recreate accommodations as appropriate to your needs. We talked about financial aid. Definitely do the FAFSA if you can, as you should, as well as scholarships. But we have a lot of different ways to help pay for college. We'll go through that at a different time. Keep going forward. Don't forget scholarships. So something important to note now is that if you are an early graduate who is graduating this December, the scholarship for MCC is open now. So if you are planning on starting classes in January, that application for the spring semester is open now. Class planning is actually open now, and registration will start in very shortly, in about a month. So the scholarship for our students starting in January is open right now, and that deadline is October 6th. So that's just a couple weeks from now. Our scholarship application is very simple to fill out on our website. You just log in with your student access, your MCC student credentials, and it's one scholarship that you'd fill out to automatically match you to over 100 scholarships. So I always tell students, if it takes you 1 hour and you get paid, if you get your scholarship award of $500 or more, that's good pay, right? That's a good use of your time, and that would cover a class and its books, potentially up to a full ride scholarship of $10,000 or more for 2 years. Definitely worth your time. So for students who are starting in the fall semester, those scholarships will be due in April. However, at MCC, it's not included in your college application, it is a separate application process through our application portal. So keep that in mind. That is a separate step you'd have to take. Okay, so what I really want to talk about today is what can you study at McHenry County College, specifically through the lens of a transfer student. And so if you're planning on starting at MCC and then transferring on for another institution, whether that is a full 2-year degree or maybe just a class in the summertime or just a semester, however that transfer process is, you're more than likely going to fall into one of these 4 transfer degrees I have listed here. Associates in Arts means liberal arts, and that pretty much covers all majors. Instead, and if you're going to be, yeah, they're listed here. So associates in arts, here's some examples of what those majors could be. We don't list everything because we can't fit them all on a slide, but pretty much most majors fall under the associates of arts buckets. And even sometimes things that you consider in the sciences, we sometimes recommend for the associates in arts because it hits more general education requirements that some colleges want you to cover and complete before transferring on to that 4-year institution. So if you are more science focused with a science major, then Associates in Science has more science and math requirements. So that could fulfill a science major or a math major need. Now, if you're going to be an engineering transfer student, we have a separate Associates in Engineering Science, which is a very regimented, specific course sequence that mirrors what University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign requires, so that you're hitting their standards for courses completed, but also it's going to meet transfer needs for most of our most common engineering schools that you could transfer onto. So if you're an engineering student, we have a separate program for that, as well as if you're going to meet art or a major music major. So those are going to have more art and music classes built in early on your freshman and sophomore year of college versus kind of waiting for that later on. So most students fall in the Associates of Arts buckets. Now, if you're on the website, on McHenry County College website, and you're like, well, do you have an associate's in psychology? Do you have an associate's in, teaching, et cetera? A lot of times the title of the major is not in the associate's degree. That would be the Associates of Arts. That's your general education. That's where a lot of these majors are going to be falling under this Associates in Arts or Science. Now we do have we have about 30 associate's degrees that have titles in there, specific career areas like nursing or fire science or automotive technology. Those are not designed to transfer. Those programs are designed for a student who wants to go straight into that particular career. So if you see the name in the title of the degree, oftentimes that's designed for someone who's not planning on transferring. However, we do have specific agreements for all of those programs that they can transfer in full later on if that's what you did intend to do, but to fewer schools. If you're going to be a general transfer student, I want you to focus on these 4 programs because that's pretty much going to fit your need. Now, if you are a dual credit student or are a sophomore or junior and thinking, hey, I could get more dual credit classes in, great. So any class that you took dual credit with MCC is going to be a real college record with McHenry County College. So do well in those classes because whatever grade you get in that class is a permanent college grade here at McHenry County College. That being said, don't forget as you're going into college, if you're not coming straight into MCC, if you're going on elsewhere, make sure to reach out to McHenry County College to transfer that credit from MCC to whatever college you're going on to. And so if you are younger, if you're an underclassman in high school, there's still opportunity to do a lot of coursework either through dual credit at your high school with your high school teachers or Running Start, which is taking any class at McHenry County College while you're still in high school. And that's available as early as your freshman year of high school. You can really take any class at MCC as long as you meet the prerequisite to get into that course. So if you really want to take digital photography over the summer, you totally could, just talk with us. There's a lot of really cool opportunities that are a great way to try a college course and get credit for that and potentially build your transfer, save some money later on in your career. All right, and don't forget, we want to align your college experience with the end goal of whatever type of career you're going into. You might be undecided, then that's okay. We have an undecided website to check out how to explore resources. And if you have a couple ideas, we have some great ways to explore, get more opportunities and experiences in either internships or job shadowing, apprenticeship programs. We have a great rotational internship program for high school students. So you can do this now. You don't have to wait until you're in college to do an internship, like a micro internship. That's a great short-term internship that you can work with us on. So our career services office actually serves the community. So any adult or high school student can access our career services office, even if you're not a current student at MCC. So we have a really nice career assessment tool. So if you're not sure of what you want to do, this is a great tool. You can use the career coach tool to help align you with potential things that match your interests. Or if you do have a feeling that you know what you want, I still recommend that you take that assessment because there could be additional things that you didn't consider that actually align with your interests. So I just want to plug that because this is a great resource for everybody right now. And we do have specific information sessions for the different career cluster pathways that align to your career interests. Last night we covered hospitality and tourism, food, agriculture, and natural resources. So all the programs at MCC that align with those clusters upcoming soon. And the 28th, we're going to do marketing, business management, and administration. So everything in that world, what kind of things we cover, what kind of careers are related to that. So take a look at these offerings. These are all up on Schooling, so you're going to get connected to that. If you did indicate that you have an interest in those areas, there will be more coming up this spring to cover the rest of the offering that MCC has. So know that this is happening throughout the year. And we also are having an MCC admissions open house. To go back to your point, visiting the college. This is going to be on a Columbus Day, so most students have that day off. I believe you guys do on October 9th. Yeah. So that's a great day to come visit MCC because MCC is still in session that day. We have classes going on. So you get to see the college in going on. So we do have information sessions happening in person, the one happening virtually in the evening, as well as campus tours throughout the day and a FAFSA and MCC scholarship information session. So you can drop in at any of these times. We can help you work on an application that day. So come see us. This is a great opportunity coming up shortly that you can come visit the college.
Kristen, I'm going to jump ahead to the University Center next.
Yeah. So MCC has a university center now. Yay. So what this means is that we have a physical space in Woodstock where we're going to have satellite partners of universities that we're working with to complete a bachelor's degree locally. So you can, once you've completed your first 2 years of college, whether that's at MCC or anywhere else, you can apply into this to take courses with universities at the University Center in Woodstock. So we have multiple different colleges on board right here. Aurora University, Northern Illinois University, Southern Illinois University, and some others that have not announced yet that are on board. And essentially, we're not trying not to repeat multiple offerings from multiple colleges. Essentially, if you're going to be a psychology major, the psychology majors could do this through Northern Illinois University. If it's accounting, it's ISU. If it's education, it's Aurora. So we have multiple options that you can continue for earning your bachelor's degree through these universities, get the diploma through these universities, but locally, so you don't have to go all the way down to like Carbondale or for SIU, for instance. It's going to be a local degree with them. So yeah, reach out if you have questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions now about this or anything else, or just show my perspective as an admissions rep, about anything.
All right. Well, that concludes the formal presentation here. We'll pause for a moment to see if anyone has any other questions that they'd like to drop into the comments. We can respond to those. As we give our live viewers one more chance to throw questions in that we can respond to right here, right now on this live stream. Ms. Buchanan, what is one piece of advice that you would give parents of underclassmen, maybe sophomores or juniors perhaps, as they engage in this process?
I would say start to explore colleges that have the career areas that you're interested in. Obviously, utilize your counselor to talk to your counselor. I know for sophomores, we're having 4-year planning meetings, having those discussions about career interest, career cluster areas of interest, and talking about classes and talking about specific colleges. Obviously, we always bring up MCC. I'm a big fan myself. I went there. So I think just reaching out to the resources. I know I've already sent some students to Mr. Menke because he's a specialist. So I think just utilizing the resources that we have here, and then also through our new resource of School Links, there's all sorts of information in there that can help students. I know, especially at the sophomore level, they come in and they're like, I'm not really sure. Well, that's totally normal. And, so I think just kind of using the resources that are here and taking advantage of taking classes of interest, taking a culinary, taking a manufacturing, taking different interests to try to get to the level of, senior year, knowing a better idea of what field to go into.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ms. Buchanan. See, Kristen, Amy, I am not seeing any other comments come in, so I think we will say adieu. Again, huge thanks as always to Kristen from MCC. Again, MCC is our strongest local partner. Again, on any given year, 45 to 50% of our students take their next step there. So they're a trusted ally. You get a great education, great training there for minimal expense. So on behalf of my colleagues, we thank our live viewers for tuning in. If you're watching the recorded version of this, we thank you for watching as well. Take care, reach out whenever you need a hand, and remember, what are you looking forward to?